The sleek diplomatic vessel glided toward the massive space station that orbited Centauri Prime. Inside the ship, Ambassador Daniel Wright adjusted his formal uniform one last time before the docking procedure completed. His heart beat faster than he wanted to admit. This mission would make history, the first official human representative to address the full Galactic Council. Nervous? Asked Lisa Hartman, his aide and security advisor. Her keen eyes missed nothing. Just the normal amount, Wright replied with a small smile. 17 advanced alien species waiting to judge if we're worthy of joining their club. What could possibly go wrong? Lisa checked her datapad. The Council has maintained peace for over 3,000 years. They've developed protocols for everything. Just follow the diplomatic script and we'll be fine. What she didn't say was that her real job went beyond diplomatic assistance. Earth Defense Intelligence had assigned her to watch, listen, and report back any information about Council technologies or potential threats. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. Most Council species had been exploring the stars when humans were still figuring out basic agriculture. The ship docked with a soft thud. Wright gathered his materials and took a deep breath. He carried Earth's hopes on his shoulders. "Ready?" Lisa asked. "As I'll ever be," he nodded. They stepped through the airlock into an enormous reception chamber. Wright had seen images during his preparation, but the reality stunned him. 17 different species of aliens stood in formal groups around the room. Some looked almost human with only subtle differences. Others seemed impossible. Floating gas clusters contained in energy fields, crystalline structures that somehow moved and communicated, massive reptilian beings that towered over the humans. A blue-skinned humanoid with silver patterns swirling across their face approached. "Ambassador Wright of Earth. I am Coordinator Ilara, your liaison to the Council. Welcome to Centauri Prime." Wright performed the formal greeting he had practiced for months. "The people of Earth extend their hands in peace and cooperation." "Your journey has been long," Ilara replied. "You will rest tonight. Tomorrow, you will address the full Council." Back in their assigned quarters, Wright reviewed his speech while Lisa swept the rooms for listening devices. "Clear," she finally announced. "But assume they can monitor everything anyway." Wright nodded. "What's your first impression?" "They're curious about us, but also worried. I overheard 2 Proxima delegates discussing how quickly humans have advanced. They called us dangerously accelerated. Is that bad?" "Depends on their definition of dangerous," Lisa replied. "Most species take thousands of years to go from basic spaceflight to FTL technology. We did it in less than a century." That night, Wright barely slept. The next morning, Ilara escorted them to the Great Chamber. The room was enormous, with 17 raised platforms arranged in a circle. Each platform held representatives of one Council species. In the center stood a small podium where Wright would speak. "The Council recognizes Earth's ambassador," announced a deep voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Wright walked forward steadily. He could feel thousands of alien eyes examining him. "Distinguished Council members," he began, "humanity is honored to stand before you. For most of our history, we wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know the answer, and we seek to join this community of advanced civilizations as full and equal members." As Wright continued his carefully prepared speech, he noticed the delegates from the Araxian Dominion watching him with particular intensity. Their leader, Councillor Vrizak, had 4 eyes that never blinked and skin like polished obsidian. Something about that unblinking stare made Wright's skin crawl. He didn't know it yet, but within 48 hours, his life would end in fire, and humanity would begin a war that would reshape the galaxy forever. Daniel Wright stood before the full Galactic Council on the second day of negotiations. The initial pleasantries were over. Now came the hard part, convincing 17 ancient species the humans deserved a seat at their table. "Earth has met all technical requirements for membership," Wright said, pointing to the data displayed above him. "Our star charts show we've established sustainable colonies on 12 worlds. Our ships maintain regular trade routes throughout our sector. Councillor Vrizak of the Araxian Dominion leaned forward. Yet you achieved this expansion in mere decades, Ambassador. Most species take centuries to reach such development safely. Wright nodded respectfully. Humans adapt quickly. It's our greatest strength. Or your greatest danger, Vrizak countered. Tell us about your new propulsion system. Wright hesitated. The Nova Drive was Earth's most closely guarded advancement. But hiding information would look suspicious. Our scientists recently improved our faster-than-light capabilities, he said carefully. The Nova Drive reduces travel time between systems by approximately 60%. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Lisa Hartman, seated behind Wright, tensed immediately. This reaction was stronger than expected. Councillor Melisor of the Proxima Collective raised her feathered hands. Such technology typically requires centuries to develop safely. How did humans achieve this so quickly? Wright felt sweat on his back. We simply approached the problem differently. Our scientists discovered that by reconfiguring the quantum field matrix. Enough, interrupted Vrizak. The specifics are irrelevant. What matters is that humans have once again demonstrated their dangerous acceleration. Wright frowned. With respect, Counselor, rapid progress is not dangerous by itself. It is when coupled with your species' history, Vrizak replied. Our observers have studied Earth's past. You've had more wars in your short history than most council species have had in millennia. We've moved beyond those conflicts, Wright argued. Earth has been unified for 40 years. A mere moment, scoffed Vrizak. And now you possess technology that could destabilize established trade routes and military boundaries. The Araxian turned to address the full council. I propose containment protocols for humanity until they demonstrate the maturity to match their technology. Wright felt cold dread. Containment was a diplomatic term for restrictions on travel, technology development, and colony expansion. Earth will not accept containment, Wright stated firmly. We come as equals, not subjects. Bold words for a species barely out of its planetary cradle, Vrizak said with something like a smile. The head counselor, an ancient being from the Tellurian Confederation, raised a hand for quiet. We will recess to consider this development. Ambassador Wright, please remain on station while we deliberate. As the delegates filed out, Lisa approached Wright. That went poorly, she whispered. They're overreacting, Wright replied. The Nova Drive isn't that revolutionary. It is to them, Lisa said. I've been monitoring their communications. Several species are genuinely frightened of our development speed, and the Araxians have been pushing anti-human policies since first contact. Before Wright could respond, 4 council security officers approached. Their uniforms showed no specific species allegiance. Ambassador Wright, the leader said, the council requests your presence for additional questioning. Lisa stepped forward. Protocol requires that I accompany the ambassador. The security chief shook his head. The request specified Ambassador Wright alone. You will be notified when he returns. Wright touched Lisa's arm. It's fine. I'll clarify our position and be back soon. As the security team led Wright away, Lisa noticed they were taking him toward the restricted sections of the station, not the normal meeting chambers. She activated her hidden communicator as soon as they were out of sight. Control, we have a situation. Wright's been separated from me against protocol. Track his location beacon. The response came back instantly. Beacon is being jammed. Activate emergency protocols. Lisa slipped away from the diplomatic area. She needed to reach their ship and warn Earth before something terrible happened. Lisa Hartman moved quickly through the service corridors of the massive space station. Her diplomatic credentials wouldn't help her now. Instead, she used the emergency access codes Earth intelligence had prepared for exactly this scenario. Every doorway opened before her as she made her way toward the docking bay. Meanwhile, Ambassador Wright found himself in a circular chamber deep within the station. The room had 17 tall chairs arranged in a perfect circle, with a small platform in the center. The council members filed in silently, their faces grim. "What is the meaning of this?" Wright demanded. "This violates diplomatic protocol." Counselor Vrizak stepped forward. "Protocol applies to recognized members and approved candidates. Ambassador, your revelations today have changed your status." The head counselor raised a hand. "Daniel Wright of Earth, the Council has convened an emergency session. Evidence suggests humanity has achieved technological breakthroughs that threaten galactic stability." "That's absurd," Wright protested. "The Nova Drive is just an improvement on existing technology." "Our scientists disagree," said another counselor. "Such advancement, combined with your species' documented aggression, represents an unacceptable risk." Wright looked around the room, searching for any sympathetic faces. He found none. "Where is my aide? I demand to speak with the Earth government." "Communications with Earth have been temporarily suspended," Vrizak said coldly. "For security reasons." Back in the docking area, Lisa had reached the Earth diplomatic vessel. 2 Council security officers stood guard at the entrance. She quietly moved behind storage containers, calculating her options. Direct confrontation would likely fail. She needed a distraction. In the council chamber, Wright watched with growing horror as the members voted one by one. "The council has reached consensus," announced the head counselor. "Humanity poses a level 1 threat to galactic stability. Containment protocols are hereby enacted." "Earth will never accept this," Wright said firmly. "We have the right to develop like any other species." Vrizak stepped into the center of the room. "You misunderstand, Ambassador. This is not negotiation. This is judgment." Guards entered, surrounding Wright. He struggled as they forced him onto the central platform. "What are you doing? This is illegal. I am a diplomatic representative." The head counselor stood. "In ancient times, when a dangerous element threatened all civilized species, our ancestors established a tradition. Fire, the universal cleanser, would remove the threat and serve as warning to others." Wright's face paled as he understood. "You can't be serious. This is murder." "This is preservation," countered Vrizak. "Your execution will send a clear message to Earth about the consequences of unchecked ambition." In the docking bay, Lisa created her distraction by overriding a cargo loader's systems. As the machine began moving erratically, the guards left their post to investigate. Lisa slipped aboard the Earth vessel and quickly powered up its systems. As she prepared for emergency departure, a station-wide broadcast began playing. Lisa froze when she saw the image on the screen. In the council chamber, Ambassador Wright stood bound on a platform, while energy fields formed a barrier around him. "No," she whispered, horrified. The broadcast continued, showing all 17 council members raising their hands in unison. A beam of intense light struck downward from the ceiling onto the platform. Wright screamed as flames engulfed him. His body twisted in agony as the ceremonial fire consumed him. The broadcast captured every moment of his death, transmitting it across all council communication channels as a warning to other species. Lisa forced herself to look away. With shaking hands, she completed the launch sequence and broke away from the station. Tears streamed down her face as she activated the Nova Drive. She had to reach Earth with the recording of this atrocity. What the Council didn't know was that human quantum communication relays had already picked up their broadcast. Across Earth and all human colonies, millions watched in stunned silence as their ambassador burned to death. In military bases throughout human space, alert levels immediately escalated to maximum. Admiral Catherine Reeves, commander of Earth Fleet, watched the execution from her office with cold fury. She pressed the emergency communication button on her desk. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Return to Earth space immediately. This is not a drill. War Protocol Alpha is now in effect." 3 days after Ambassador Wright's execution, Earth was ready for war. Every military base hummed with activity. Ships returned from distant patrols, loading weapons and supplies. Civilian vessels were converted for military use with remarkable speed. In Washington, D.C., President Alan Bennett stood before the United Earth Congress. The massive chamber was completely silent as he approached the podium. Billions of humans throughout the solar system and colony worlds watched the broadcast. 3 days ago, President Bennett began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. We all witnessed an act of barbarism. Ambassador Daniel Wright, a man of peace who went to the Galactic Council with open hands, was brutally executed without trial. The president paused, his eyes moving across the assembled representatives. For 72 hours, we have attempted to contact the council. We have demanded an explanation. We have requested the return of Ambassador Wright's remains. The council has ignored all communication. On the main screen behind him appeared the last image of Wright alive, standing proudly as Earth's representative. Daniel Wright was not just our diplomat. He was the embodiment of humanity's hope for peaceful cooperation among the stars. His murder was not just an attack on one man, but a declaration of hostility against our entire species. The president's voice grew stronger. The council believes we are too young, too aggressive, too dangerous to be their equals. They sought to teach us a lesson through fear. They have indeed taught us something. His fist struck the podium. They have taught us that after thousands of years of supposed civilization, they still resort to ritual murder. They have shown us that they fear our potential so much they would rather burn our representatives than talk as equals. In orbit above Earth, Admiral Reeves watched the address from the bridge of the flagship UES Valiant. Around her, the largest gathering of human warships ever assembled waited for orders. Today, continued President Bennett, I have submitted to Congress a formal declaration of war against all Galactic Council member species who participated in or endorsed this act of barbarism. The chamber erupted in shouts of approval. The president raised his hand for silence. This is not a decision taken lightly. War has terrible costs, but the Council has made clear that humanity will never be accepted as equals. They offer us only submission or destruction. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, yet everyone could hear him clearly. We choose neither. We choose to fight. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in 40 years, united humanity would go to war. After the session, President Bennett met with military leaders in the secure war room beneath the White House. Admiral Reeves joined via secure channel from orbit. The Council expects us to be cautious, said General Eric Mason, pointing to star maps. They believe we will fortify our systems and prepare for their attack. But that's not our plan, replied Admiral Reeves. For years, we've had contingencies for hostile first contact. Now we activate Operation Thunderbolt. Lisa Hartman, still recovering from her escape, entered the room. Her official title had been updated to Intelligence Commander. Our analysis of Council communications shows they're completely unprepared for total war, she explained. They haven't fought a major conflict in over 6,000 years. Their weapons are advanced, but designed for small police actions, not full-scale warfare. President Bennett studied the proposed attack plan. What about their numerical advantage? They have 17 species with thousands of worlds. Admiral Reeves smiled grimly. Most Council species maintain only ceremonial forces. Only 4 have actual military fleets, and they're scattered across the galaxy. If we strike fast and hard at key targets, we can cripple their ability to coordinate. The president nodded slowly. Who leads the first strike? Captain Stephen Caldwell on the UES Defiance, replied Admiral Reeves. Our newest stealth warship with our best crew. Their target. General Mason highlighted 3 locations on the star map. Council outposts near our space. Taking these will give us forward bases for the main offensive and show the galaxy that humans aren't to be underestimated. President Bennett stood silently for a long moment, the weight of his decision visible in his expression. Millions would die in the coming war, but the alternative was subjugation. Commence Operation Thunderbolt, he finally ordered. May God have mercy on us all, because we will show no mercy to those who burned our diplomat. Captain Stephen Caldwell stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as his small fleet approached the first target. 3 sleek warships moved silently through space, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible to sensors. The Galactic Council outpost of Proxima Station floated ahead, its lights shining brightly against the darkness. "All ships report ready, Captain," said First Officer Grace Miller. "Weapons hot, boarding teams standing by." Caldwell nodded. "Remember our orders. We take the station intact. We need its data cores and communication systems." The plan was simple but bold. Hit 3 Council outposts simultaneously before they could raise alarms. Earth forces had trained for this moment, running countless simulations based on intelligence gathered over years. 10 minutes to attack position, reported the tactical officer. Caldwell opened a channel to all 3 ships. "This is Caldwell. Today we strike the first blow for humanity. For Ambassador Wright. For all those the Council would keep down. Show them what humans can do." Back on Earth, Dr. Olivia Summers worked in a secure military lab. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had studied Council species for years. Now her knowledge would help win a war. "The Araxians have 4 eyes, but their upper pair is sensitive to light," she explained to the assembled officers. "Flash grenades will blind them completely for nearly a minute." She moved to the next hologram. "The Tellurians breathe a methane mixture. Their environmental suits have filters here and here," she pointed. "Target those points, and their atmosphere becomes toxic within seconds." Admiral Reeves watched from the back of the room. "Is this how we fight? Exploiting biological weaknesses?" Dr. Summers met her gaze steadily. "They burned our diplomat alive, Admiral. We use every advantage we have." At Proxima Station, the attack began. The UES Defiance dropped its stealth field and fired precisely targeted shots that disabled the station's communication array and defensive weapons. The other human warships did the same to the station's power core and engine systems. Before the Council security forces could respond, boarding shuttles launched from all 3 ships. Marines in advanced combat armor breached the hull at multiple points. Captain Caldwell watched the tactical display as blue dots representing his troops moved through the station. "Sir, Council forces are mobilizing, but they seem confused," reported the communications officer. "Their response is uncoordinated." Caldwell wasn't surprised. The Council security forces were essentially police, not soldiers. They hadn't fought a real war in thousands of years. Inside the station, Marine Sergeant Paul Rivera led his squad through the corridors. They encountered alien security officers armed with standard weapons. The aliens fired energy weapons that barely dented the Marines' armor. Non-lethal takedowns were possible, Rivera ordered. "We need prisoners for intelligence." His squad used stun weapons that Dr. Summers had calibrated for each Council species. The security forces fell quickly, unprepared for the speed and efficiency of the human attack. In Washington, Commander Lisa Hartman coordinated intelligence from the 3 simultaneous attacks. Reports flowed in from all targets. "Proxima Station is secure. Council forces have surrendered," she informed President Bennett. "Outpost Sirius has been captured with minimal casualties. Rigel Base is still being cleared, but our forces control 90% of the facility." President Bennett studied the tactical display. Casualties: 7 human dead, 23 wounded. Council forces lost approximately 50 security officers, with hundreds captured. The President nodded grimly. "And the Council's response?" "Confusion, sir. They're still trying to understand what's happening. Their formal military forces are mobilizing, but slowly. They expected us to hide behind our borders, not attack." On the UES Defiance, Captain Caldwell received the surrender of the station commander, a tall Proxima Collective official who seemed utterly shocked. "Why have you done this?" the alien asked. "This is not how civilized species behave." Caldwell's face hardened. "Burning diplomats alive isn't civilized either. This is just the beginning." As human forces secured their first victories, Council officials on Centauri Prime gathered in emergency session. Counselor Vrizak watched with growing alarm as reports of human attacks poured in. How did they move so quickly? Demanded another counselor. It's been only days since the judgment. Vrizak had no answer. For the first time in his long life, he felt something unfamiliar. Fear. 1 month into the war, cracks began to appear in the Galactic Council's unity. Emergency sessions stretched for days as representatives argued over how to respond to the human offensive. The council chamber, once a place of calm deliberation, now echoed with angry voices. The humans have taken 12 major outposts and 3 minor colony worlds, reported the Tellurian representative. Their attacks are precise and overwhelming. Our defense forces cannot match their military tactics. Counselor Vrizak slammed his fist on the table. Then send more ships. The combined might of 17 species should easily crush one young race. My people will not commit more forces, announced the Proxima Collective representative. Her feathered crest flattened in anger. We warned against executing the human diplomat. We voted against it. This war is not of our making. Similar statements came from the Tellurian Confederation representative. 2 of the council's oldest and most powerful members were backing away from the conflict. This is treason, Vrizak shouted. The council must stand united. The council should have listened to reason, replied the Proxima representative coldly. The Proxima Collective formally withdraws from council military operations against humanity. We declare neutrality in this conflict. The Tellurian Confederation quickly followed with their own declaration of neutrality. Other species began whispering among themselves, considering their options. As the council fractured, Admiral Reeves prepared for the next phase of human operations. On the bridge of the UES Valiant, she reviewed the battle plans with her senior officers. The Araxian fleet is mobilizing near Rigel, she explained, pointing to the holographic map. Intelligence suggests they plan to lead a major counterattack against our forward positions. The Araxians have the most powerful military among Council species, noted Captain Caldwell, who had been promoted after his successful first strike. Their ships are technologically superior to ours. Admiral Reeves smiled. Superior technology doesn't guarantee victory. We've prepared something special for them. The plan was daring. Human forces would appear to retreat from their positions near Rigel, drawing the Araxian fleet into a carefully prepared trap. Meanwhile, Commander Lisa Hartman had activated deep cover agents planted years earlier within Council space. These agents would sabotage key communication relays, preventing the Araxians from calling for reinforcements. 3 days later, the massive Araxian fleet moved into position. Over 50 warships, each larger and more heavily armed than anything humans had built, approached the apparently weakened human forces. From his flagship, Araxian Fleet Commander Drex observed the human ships falling back. They flee before our superior might, he told his officers. The Council was right to contain this primitive species. Today we will show them the price of defiance. What the Araxians didn't know was that human ships had deployed thousands of small, stealthy drones throughout the region. Each drone carried a powerful explosive charge and advanced targeting systems. Admiral Reeves watched from a hidden position as the Araxian fleet moved deeper into the trap. Once they were fully committed, she gave the order. Operation Lightning Strike is go. All units execute. The human forces suddenly stopped retreating and formed a defensive position. As the Araxians moved to engage, the hidden drones activated simultaneously. Thousands of small explosions erupted across the Araxian formation, targeting engines, weapons systems, and command centers with surgical precision. At the same moment, a second human fleet appeared from behind a nearby moon, cutting off the Araxian retreat. Caught in a classic pincer movement, with many ships already damaged by the drone strikes, the Araxians found themselves fighting for survival rather than victory. The battle lasted less than 3 hours. When it ended, 32 Araxian warships had been destroyed or disabled. The remainder retreated in disarray, limping back toward Council space. Human casualties were minimal. News of the defeat spread quickly throughout the galaxy. Species that had existed for thousands of years watched in shock as humans, newcomers to interstellar travel, systematically dismantled the military forces of one of the Council's most powerful members. On Centauri Prime, the remaining Council members turned on Councillor Vrizak. "Your reckless action has brought this disaster upon us," accused the Morellian representative. "The execution of one human diplomat has cost us more than any conflict in 2,000 years." Vrizak had no response. For the first time in Council history, a vote of censure was passed against a sitting member. 8 months into the war, humanity controlled nearly a quarter of what had once been Council space. The conflict had spread across hundreds of star systems. Earth ships pushed deeper into enemy territory each week, capturing valuable technology and resources. The remaining Council species fought desperately but couldn't match human military doctrine and determination. On Centauri Prime, the 7 Council species still committed to the war gathered in emergency session. Their grand chamber, once a symbol of galactic unity, now felt empty with so many seats abandoned. "The humans have taken the Orient sector," reported a tired military officer. "Our forces there surrendered after their command center was destroyed." Councillor Vrizak, once proud and confident, now appeared haggard. His political influence had crumbled along with the Council's military position. "We cannot allow this to continue," he said. "The humans must be stopped before they reach Centauri Prime." "With what forces?" asked another councillor bitterly. "Half our fleet is destroyed. The other half is scattered across the galaxy." Vrizak's eyes narrowed. "There is one option we haven't considered: the Harbinger." The chamber fell silent. The Harbinger was an ancient weapon, created thousands of years ago during the Council's early history. A planet killer, capable of destroying an entire world from across the galaxy. It had been sealed away, and its use forbidden after the last Great War. "We cannot use the Harbinger," protested several councillors. "Such weapons were banned by our own laws." "Our civilization is at stake," Vrizak argued. "If we destroy Earth, the human forces will lose their command structure and supply lines. The war ends immediately." After hours of heated debate, desperation won out. The Council voted to activate the Harbinger and target Earth. Deep in human space, Major Ryan Collins commanded Earth's orbital defense grid. Thousands of satellites and defense platforms formed a protective shield around humanity's homeworld. Collins had joined the military after losing his brother in a pirate attack on a human colony ship years earlier. Now he was responsible for Earth's safety. "Sir, long-range sensors are detecting unusual energy readings from Centauri space," reported a young lieutenant. "The pattern doesn't match anything in our database." Collins studied the readings carefully. "Alert Admiral Reeves. Something big is happening." Within an hour, Earth's top scientists and military leaders were analyzing the data. Dr. Olivia Summers recognized the threat first. "It's a directed energy weapon of massive power," she explained. "Based on the energy signature, I believe it's designed to destabilize a planet's core. If it hits Earth." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood the stakes. "Time to impact?" asked President Bennett. "Approximately 12 hours, replied Dr. Summers. "The energy beam travels through subspace. We can't intercept it en route." "Can we evacuate the planet?" someone asked. Admiral Reeves shook her head. "Not 10 billion people in 12 hours. Not even a fraction of that." Major Collins stepped forward. "The defense grid might be able to disperse the energy if we reconfigure every satellite and platform to create a deflection field." "Will that work?" President Bennett asked. Dr. Summers considered for a moment. "Theoretically, yes, but we've never attempted anything like this before." "It's our only option," said Collins firmly. For the next 11 hours, every engineer and technician on Earth worked frantically to reconfigure the defense grid. Major Collins coordinated from Orbital Command, pushing his people and systems to their limits. With just minutes remaining, Collins gave the final order: "Activate deflection field now." The space around Earth shimmered as thousands of platforms, generated an interconnected energy barrier. When the Harbinger's beam arrived, it struck the field with unimaginable force. The barrier held for precious seconds, giving automated systems time to track the attack's origin. Then, with a blinding flash, the field collapsed. The weapon's energy struck Earth, but its power had been partially dispersed. Instead of destroying the planet, the attack created massive earthquakes and tidal waves. Millions died, but Earth survived. Major Collins' orbital command center took a direct hit from energy feedback. As the station broke apart around him, he managed to transmit one final message with the Harbinger's coordinates. In her flagship, Admiral Reeves received the data and Collins' final words: "Make them pay." With Earth damaged but intact, human forces throughout the galaxy received news of the attack. Their response was immediate and unified. All offensive operations redirected toward one target: Centauri Prime. 1 year after Ambassador Daniel Wright's execution, a massive human fleet approached Centauri Prime. Captain Stephen Caldwell stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, leading over 300 warships toward the heart of Council space. The crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces grim. This wasn't just another military operation. This was justice. "All ships report ready for final approach," said First Officer Grace Miller. "The Council's remaining defense fleet is moving to intercept." Caldwell nodded. "Proceed as planned. Tell all ships to focus fire on military targets only. We're not here for revenge against civilians." The human fleet split into 3 battle groups, executing a complex maneuver that confused the Council's defensive forces. While 2 groups engaged the enemy ships, Caldwell's force punched through toward the massive space station that housed the Galactic Council. On the station, chaos reigned. Alarms blared as officials rushed to evacuate. Councillor Vrizak watched the approaching human ships with disbelief. "How did they break through so quickly?" he demanded. "Where are our reinforcements?" An aide responded nervously. "Most of our allies have surrendered or declared neutrality, Councillor. We stand alone." Vrizak's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. The mighty Council, ruler of the galaxy for thousands of years, now faced destruction because of one human diplomat's execution. His execution. The battle for Centauri Prime lasted only hours. Council forces fought bravely, but were overwhelmed by human tactics and determination. As his flagship approached the central station, Captain Caldwell received a transmission. "The Council surrenders," announced a tired voice. "Please cease fire. We will accept your terms." 3 days later, President Alan Bennett arrived personally on Centauri Prime to accept the formal surrender. He walked through the Council chamber where Ambassador Wright had been burned alive 1 year earlier. The remaining Council members stood in silent defeat as Bennett took his place at the center of the room. "1 year ago," Bennett began, "you chose to murder our representative rather than treat with us as equals. You believed humanity too young, too aggressive to join your community of worlds. You sought to teach us humility through fear." He looked directly at Councillor Vrizak. "Instead, you learned what happens when humans unite against a common enemy. The war you started ends today." A Council representative stepped forward nervously. "What are your terms? Will you destroy our worlds as we attempted to destroy yours?" Many Council species had expected genocide. After thousands of years of their own rule, they couldn't imagine another outcome. President Bennett's response surprised them. "Humanity does not seek your extinction. We want justice, not revenge." He outlined the terms. The Galactic Council would be dissolved. A new interstellar alliance would be formed where all species, including formerly suppressed races, would have equal standing. The Harbinger and similar weapons would be dismantled. Those directly responsible for Wright's execution would face trial. As the terms were read, Captain Caldwell and his team investigated the Council's secure archives. What they discovered shocked even hardened military officers. "Mr. President," Caldwell reported later, "we found evidence that the Council has been systematically suppressing emerging intelligent species across the galaxy for thousands of years. Any race that developed too quickly was contained, their progress halted. Some were even guided into extinction if deemed too aggressive. President Bennett reviewed the evidence grimly. So we weren't the first. No, sir. Dozens of species were kept from reaching their potential. Some are still being contained on their homeworlds. This discovery changed everything. What had begun as a war of retribution now became something greater, a liberation. 1 month later, representatives from 27 species gathered in the former council chamber. Some were former council members. Others were newly freed races, attending their first interstellar meeting. President Bennett welcomed them all to the founding of the Interstellar Alliance. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals," he said. "The age of suppression is over. The future belongs to all sentient beings who choose cooperation over domination." Lisa Hartman, now bearing the title of ambassador, unveiled a memorial at the center of the chamber. It was a simple hologram showing Daniel Wright as he had been in life. Hopeful, determined, reaching out in friendship. From the ashes of one human rose the liberation of a galaxy. Read the inscription. Ambassador Hartman placed her hand on the memorial. "He would have been proud," she said quietly. This was what he wanted all along, a true community of worlds.